tried to keep me.
Ben Habib, Ben Habib, Ben Habib, Ben Habib, Ben Habib, Ben Habib, Ben Habib.
Thank you. They've tried. Hold on. They tried very hard to keep me away. But nothing's going to keep me away, nothing. Good to see you.
Who's in charge?
Wait. Am I? No, I'm fine. Who's in charge? You in charge?
No, Dick's in charge.
Nice to see you, Sam. Nice to meet you. Good to see you.
How exciting! Ben made it, finally!
Yeah.
We're all here. My name's Nick. I'm just going to do a couple of ground rules for everyone, so we can get on to the speeches reel. This door is now locked, everyone. If you want to go outside for fresh air, go straight out the courtyard bar door there, behind you. There's also, for anyone who's disabled, you can't go down the stairs to the toilets. There's disabled toilets through that way. Ask someone that can help you get there. We're going to have a shop up here after all the speeches. So please bring lots of money and buy lots of stuff to help support us. The bar, just in case anyone doesn't know, is card only. So if you brought cash, bring it to the shop, because we take cash. We're aiming to finish at about 6 o'clock, 6:15. That will get cleared away after about 5:30 up there, guys. There's a dinner up there afterwards for a couple of people, just so you know what's going on. So we'll all sort of congregate down here. And then finally, if there is some sort of lefty lunatic who's stuck in here, you're very, very brave, I can tell you that much. But what I'd suggest is try listening for a change to what we have to say. Nothing you hear today will be racist or xenophobic or homophobic or any of the phobic things. We just want to build a better country for our children.
Yeah.
Right, so enough from me. I'm going to give you to Jim Ferguson. He's our international ambassador, I'm sure you all know. And enjoy yourselves, guys.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Nick. It's a wonderful pleasure for me to be here in Newcastle. It's the second time I've been here. I am Jim Ferguson, and I'm so honoured to be among so much British patriots. Give yourselves a round of applause. I never thought I would get political again after the Brexit party, and I was a parliamentary candidate there. And when I saw Ben Habib joining Reform UK, I thought, yes, they're going to get some sense into that party. But it didn't last, because they're not willing to reform. And when Ben launched Advance UK, I immediately joined the party, because I felt inspired to do so. Ben has the leadership and the vision to turn this country around. And we're all stepping forward into the fight to get Britain back to what it should be, where families feel safe in our streets, where the elderly can get hospital appointments without waiting a year or plus, and where people feel confident in being proud to be British again. So I'm here today to say, look, it's about time we got this country back together again. And all of you here today are demonstrating the fact that there is a commitment. When Ben launched the party, he said he would wait until he got to 30,000 members. Well, we're well over 35,000 members. Yeah. And I pay tribute to Ben Habib's leadership and vision. And I can tell you something, when I was a lowly candidate in the Brexit party, any time I walked past Ben in the corridors of power, he would always stop and ask me how I was getting on, and he knew my name. And that is the hallmarks of a great leader. Our original venue was cancelled by the Labour-run council. No surprises that they would employ dirty tactics and dirty tricks. But has it stopped us? No! Is it going to stop us? No! Will it ever stop us? No! Exactly right. We're here. And I have to say, I really like this venue. I've never seen a crystal chandelier. I know it's crystal, but I've never seen anything quite like it. I can't keep my eyes off it. Everybody up in the top balcony thinks I'm looking at them. I'm actually just mesmerised by this thing up here. But being a Scottish Highlander, I know that I have to speak a little bit more slowly for my English friends. I hope I'm doing a reasonably decent job of doing that. Normally I'd have finished my speech by now. But I have to say, on a more serious note, how honoured I am to meet so many of our Advanced College UK friends here today as well. Honestly, I've seen so many wonderful people with the skills and the talents coming to Advance. It's like it's happening practically every single week. We see a new announcement. And once again, that shows that the skill, the experience is there to set policy, which we will do. And I was very humbled and very honoured when Ben's Chief of Staff and Ben himself asked if I would take on the additional role of International Ambassador for Advance UK. I've been building networks across Europe. I've been involved with the United States a lot at senior level. I've just been asked to go back to Croatia to speak there at the Make Europe Great Again conference in honour of Charlie Kirk. And you know, as a public speaker, the risks associated with what we do isn't lost on me. We're all situationally aware, but the tragedy that happened in America to somebody that was loved by the Patriots, not just in America, but across the world, is something that isn't lost on us. But it makes us stronger. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And we always have to remember the risks associated. But we must never live in fear. And I personally would rather die on my feet fighting for freedom than on my knees as a slave to the system. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Many of you I've met from my time in the Brexit Party. Many of you follow me on my shows on X and what we do there. And I'm so humbled to see so many great patriots here today. It's wonderful and it's inspiring. And I just want to say to you, this is just the start. 35,000 members in a matter of weeks, thanks to Ben's leadership and the people like Howard Cox, and the people like Richie from Wales, Sam and all the others. We are building an incredibly powerful and talented team of people. I feel very humbled and very honoured to be here with so many of you today. Thank you for that. And finally, I would just say to my fellow speakers up on the stage, you're going to hear some great speeches. They're keeping the best for last, of course, Ben. And we didn't want to start without you. But I just want to say thank you. This is a new battle of Britain that is about to take place. Don't underestimate the power, the tenacity of what we're up against. The globalists and their Brit cards and their digital ID and their central bank digital currencies, we are going to resist it every step of the way. I'm going to be around. I look forward to meeting with you all later on. If you have any questions, please come up. My door's always open. And on that note, let me just say thank you for being here. Thank you for being British patriots. And thank you to the lovely Floss, who's right here, and she's embarrassed now. But you see, you caught my eye, Floss, and I had to say that now because she is wonderful. And she is the right-hand lady of Ben Habib. And Floss, we really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Sam. Sam, great to see you. You're up next. No pressure.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, Newcastle, and thank you for being here today. My name is Sam Woods-Brass, a town councillor and a local voice, here to talk about the importance of free speech in our democracy. We nearly didn't make it here today to this stage, not because of delays, not because of excuses, but because some people didn't want this event to happen at all. They wanted us silenced. And that, my friends, is exactly why free speech matters more than ever. Think about it. In the land of Shakespeare, Orwell, and the great Geordie storytellers, we are being told to hold our tongues. These days, you don't just need a microphone to speak your mind. You need a permission slip. Well, Advance UK does not ask for permission. Now, I know some people would rather that I started with a joke about Sunderland or maybe the northeast weather. Though, to be fair, when you've got the Newcastle nightlife, who even notices the cold? But the truth is this: what's happening to free speech in this country is no laughing matter. Still, I will give you this: the people trying to shut us up clearly don't know the Northeast very well. If there's one place in Britain where telling people to keep quiet has never worked, it's here. Free speech isn't an optional extra in our democracy. It's not a decoration you hang from a wall. It's the foundation stone of our democracy. Without it, the ballot box is meaningless. Without it, debate dies. Without it, power goes unchallenged. And Newcastle knows this more than most. This city has always had a voice, from the shipyards to the coal mines, from the terraces at St. James Park to the Saturday morning markets. Geordies have never been shy of saying what they think. Sometimes loudly, sometimes bluntly, oftentimes rudely, but always honestly. When the pits closed, you marched. When the jobs were threatened, you rallied. And when neighbours struggled, you stood shoulder to shoulder and you spoke out. And that is what freedom of speech looks like in practice. Ordinary people refusing to be ignored. But here's the problem. In modern Britain, too many people feel they can't say what they really think. They lower the voice in pubs. They hesitate before posting online. They worry about losing their jobs for saying something that was common sense not just 5 years ago. That is not freedom. That is tyranny. And the tragedy is, the people pushing this culture of silence claim to be standing for tolerance. But real tolerance isn't about silencing people that you disagree with. It's about listening to them, arguing with them, and sometimes laughing at them, and moving on together. If your ideas can't survive debate, then they don't deserve to win. Now, we all know the internet has changed the game. A few years ago, a voice could only carry as far as the market square. Today, one post can travel around the world before you've even put the kettle on. That is an amazing opportunity, but also a real danger. We've seen lies spreading faster than the truth. We've seen many people cancelled overnight for a single comment. We've seen many ordinary men and women jailed for flippant comments made online. In Westminster, the media, and the boardrooms, it often feels like the voices of the ordinary people no longer count. But the answer is not silence. The answer is not censorship. The answer is better speech. The answer is stronger debate and confidence in the right of every citizen to be heard. Because if we stop speaking, the powerful stop listening. And if they stop listening, then we all lose. This country has a proud tradition of speaking truth to power. From Magna Carta to the Chartists, from the suffragettes to Brexit, Britain has always been at its best when ordinary people stood up and they said, "You will hear us."
Yeah.
And the North East has always been on the front line of that fight. That is why patriotism is not just waving the flag. Patriotism is defending the values that that flag stands for. And freedom of speech is one of those values. It protects not just the loud and the confident, but it gives dignity to every citizen, the power to say, "I am here, I matter, and my words count." Now, I know Newcastle likes a laugh, so let me say this. Free speech means you can shout in the Gallagher end. It means you can joke about Sunderland, carefully though. I mean, if you value your safety, because I am a Mackem after all. It means you can stand here today and disagree with me, if you like. That is the beauty of it. Free speech doesn't just protect the people you agree with, it protects everyone. So here's the challenge that I'll leave you with today. How will you use your voice? Will you use it to divide or to unite? Will you use it to shout over others or to listen? Will you use it to complain or to create? Every one of us has power, the power to call out injustice when we see it, the power to speak for those who can't, the power to lift someone's spirits with a kind word when they've lost all hope. Don't underestimate your voice. Words spoken in a Newcastle pub can matter as much as words spoken in Parliament. They can move communities, and sometimes they can even make history. So let me close with this. Free speech is not just a right to be defended. It is a duty to be exercised. Your voice matters, whether it's your community, at the ballot box, or even just singing your heart out on a Saturday afternoon. Don't worry, I won't start singing. Your voice makes a difference. Never let anyone tell you that you are too small, too ordinary, too far away to be heard. Newcastle has never been quiet, and Britain must never be silenced. So let's cherish free speech. Let's defend it. And above all, let's use it. Thank you. Now passing over to our next speaker, Richie Taylor, the leader of Advance UK for Wales.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And first of all, what I'd like to do is thank Nick, Floss, and all the team that managed to put this together at the last minute. Show your huge appreciation for the efforts to make this happen. Now, I'm not commonly known for using notes, but for this occasion, I have decided to change that because I don't want to get it wrong, because Ben for number 10 is stood behind me, and when he becomes Prime Minister, I'm pitching to become Chief of Staff, so I've got to be careful what I say. The words of Tony Benn are very, very poignant this afternoon. What power have you got? Where did you get it from? In whose interest do you exercise it? To whom are you accountable? And how can we get rid of you? If you cannot get rid of the people who govern you, you do not live in a democratic system. Whoa. Excuse me. Don't clap, you take up my time. I've only got 10 minutes, right? So, whoa. Clap at the end, right? Joke. At Advance UK, many of you know, we believe the government should serve the British people and be accountable to them and them only. There can be no dilution of the government's ability to discharge this obligation and the people's ability to hold them to account by membership of international bodies and enter into international treaties, international law and domestic quangos. In other words, we do not want international superpowers having their tentacles in our domestic politics. They have no place in our parliament. Our parliament exists to serve the interests of the British people, not foreign nationals. We should not bow the knee to these super international cronies and unelected bureaucrats that are part of the WHO, the WEF, the UN, the EU, you name it, the list goes on. Democracy only works truly when the elected are truthful, honest, and act with integrity on the promises they make in their manifesto. Sadly, we have seen the decline within Great Britain and Northern Ireland of people's democratic rights being removed from them by people who have acted as tyrants, dictators, and have ignored the plight of this great country. We promise at Advance UK that we will act with integrity, authenticity and transparency. We will always put British nationals first, regardless of the cost. We will end our ties with all these international bodies because our democracy depends upon it. Ladies and gentlemen, people are tired, angry and disillusioned by this current government and previous governments. And I believe it's time for change. And that change will only happen when you have a party who has the political will to make the big decisions to become sovereign in all of its parts. As we've seen, the exponential growth of Advance UK, and you are part of that growth as well. Every single one of you has contributed to making this happen here today. So thank you. Give yourself one huge round of applause. When Ben Habib launched Advance UK, it was clear to me that this was going to be a vehicle by which that would be our last chance of winning back the hearts, minds and souls of our nation. That people once again will take pride in their culture, in their history and in their values. And we would not apologise for our history, for our Christian heritage, for our Christian constitution. We would stand up for the rights of British national people and citizens of this great country. Here this afternoon, colleagues, friends, members, guests, we are all facing a time in our lives like never before. We are living in unprecedented times of national security. We've seen democracy being threatened as we've allowed the borders to remain open, a policy that has allowed so many people from countries, undocumented males, coming into our country that has changed the demographics of our nation completely. And let's be quite frank about this, we never got Brexit done. We are still part of the ECHR, which under Ben's leadership would be repealed. This is not a time to play party politics. This is a time to stand up, to speak up, and to stand out. And that is why Advance UK was launched by Ben Habib to create an alternative, not just to the Uniparty, but to all the parties, to those that would argue, well, we're split in the vote. Have anybody heard that? We're split in the vote? Well, I'd say this to you. You are not entitled to anyone's vote. That carries with it a sense of entitlement, as each individual in this great nation of ours has a democratic right to vote for a party that aligns with their conscience, convictions and principles. And I can see no other party offering what we do. We stand for those 4 key mission statements: nation state, sovereignty, equality under the law, and of course, that wonderful word democracy. It would, of course, be amiss of me not to mention my beloved Wales. I'm not going to start singing the Welsh national anthem to you. I've been siarad Cymraeg as well, I love the language. But Wales is part of the Union, and that should always be the case. Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and England, together for a greater United Kingdom. I can make you one promise. I will do everything I can, alongside my colleagues and friends, to ensure that we will fulfill the mission of Advance UK, and we will deliver for the British people. No more slogans, no more fancy words or fancy politicians, no more political footballing, but we will deliver for the British people. We will deliver for the people of this great nation. We will deliver for the people of Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and of course, wonderful Newcastle. I meant England. We will become, ladies and gentlemen, I have every faith and confidence, prayerfully, as a believer, as a Christian, I believe that we do not wrestle just against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. And both those things come hand in hand. And there's a rise, there's a tide turning. And the tide is turning very, very fast because politicians have let us down. The political establishment has failed us. But this is a dawn of a new day, ladies and gentlemen. Things are about to change. And I love you if you've got your social media to hashtag Ben for 10. So anything you've got, just put that on a Ben for 10. I think I coined that phrase back in 2016 when I first interviewed you, didn't I? I think yes, when you were the deputy leader of some strange party back then, Ben, yes. But in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I, like many of you, realise that this might be our last chance to save our nation from ideologies and doctrines that have invaded our culture and our country. And the hearts and minds of people, to the extent that they've attempted to cancel us, and as we've seen more recently, even murder those who have a different opinion. And may God rest Charlie Kirk's soul in peace. We are not left-wing or right-wing. We're either right or we're wrong. That argument doesn't wash anymore. It was created by the political elites to divide us. But we will not be divided, because together we're stronger, and our future is stronger as we advance together. Ladies and gentlemen, and yes, I said ladies and gentlemen. Don't get me started, I got off script. I got the boss behind me. We need a revival in this country again. We need to restore the greatness that it once was, our culture and our history that has been eroded by doctrines and ideologies that have come across the English Channel. Our schools, our education system have been infiltrated, our parliament has been infiltrated, and we, the great British people, as tolerant as we are, in the words of Jesus, yes, we turn the other cheek, but I've only got 4 cheeks, I don't know about you. And once the fourth one's gone, then look out. Anyway, we need to protect our veterans, the elderly, the homeless, the vulnerable in society, those with mental health, those who suffered under the hands of the pandemic, the lockdowns and everything else that damaged our society beyond repair. And we're fighting a battle, but I promise you this, I know Ben Habib's resolve. I know his heart, I know his transparency and authenticity, and the man is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. When people are being silenced, when people are being cancelled, and when people are being told not to speak out for the fear of being arrested, this is not the country I want my children and their children to grow up in. It's because I believe in the freedom of speech, the freedom of choice, the freedom of thought. I also believe in a democratic society that every British citizen should have the right to exercise their democratic right to speak freely without fear or favour. We will do away with the two-tier policing and the two-tier justice system in this country. In conclusion, a good old friend said to mine when I started public speaking, 3 things: stand up, speak up, and shut up. I never listened to the last one, but anyway. In conclusion, we will not be silenced. We will not be pushed into a corner, as Sam has pointed out, and told to be quiet. We will not allow those that would seek to silence us to succeed. We will continue with every fibre of our being to fight, fight, fight. I think Donald Trump said the same thing, didn't he? And together we must do whatever it takes, whatever hill it takes to climb, whatever mountain we must climb, we will climb it together and we will overcome. We will win. In the words of the great Martin Luther King, I've seen the promised land. I've been over the mountain. I may not get there with you, but we will get there in the end. We will overcome. We will be strong. We will be steadfast. We will be diligent. We will be transparent, authentic, and we will be truthful with the great British public. The days of the old way of doing politics is over. This is the dawn of a new day. The lions are roaring. The dragon is breathing its fire. We will raise our flags high with pride. Welcome to Advance UK. No, you can clap, yeah, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wonderful, the one and only Mr. Howard Cox.
Follow that, my friend. Excuse me, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a bit hot. So do you mind if I just do a striptease? Can you do the music? Oh dear, just take that. There is a method in my madness, you know.
This one.
If I can get this right, it's taking time. I got this the wrong way round. Look, for those who don't know me, my name's Howard Cox and I'm an old age pensioner. But also, I'm a far right fascist thug. And more importantly, I'm proud to be one of that lot. Have I got it inside out? Oh no! Oh dear! Oh, I can't.
You said you're a pensioner.
That's right. You've all done very well. Now look, I apologise for that, but I'll show it again. On a serious note, following Richard's passion there, that was a phenomenal speech. Can we have another round of applause for that? I mean, most of the time I talk about the cost of motoring, if we bore you to death about that at the moment in time, but it's an honour and a privilege to talk about our 4 pillars today, and I'm talking about the 4th pillar, which is equality under the law. And I want to ask you a question. And it's a serious question. Do you believe our judicial system is fit for purpose? No. I mean, traditional criminals, yeah? Do you remember them? Are not being caught. But if you declare you are a patriot and you want to raise our national flag, you become fair game to prosecution. It's unbelievable to see the flags here I'm not joking. I put a flag outside my house only about 3 or 4 days ago, and it's a simple Union flag, and I put it up. It's about 3 foot by 2 foot, and someone walked past. She was is about 50. She had a tweed coat on, and you know where I'm going. And she came up to me and said, "Why have you put that up there?" I said, "Well, I'm proud to be British, and I want to make sure that a certain person in number 10 understands I'm not a far-right flag, I'm just a pure patriot." And she said to me, "Well, I'm offended by that flag." Can you believe that? And it's happening right across the country. In certain areas, certainly Labour authorities especially, we see Palestine flags everywhere, but not British flags. National flags, and right across, and I'm going to put the St George's flag up tomorrow. I'm going to put and join it up with because and this is where the problem lies at the moment. Equality under the law, it doesn't exist in this country anymore whatsoever, and we're seeing a situation now by, you can steal £195 from a shop, no problem at all, and you won't be booked, you won't be caught. You can say, "Oh, go away, take it with you." This is what's happening, and it's totally and utterly wrong. We've seen so many things that happen in this country, and Richard mentioned about the two-tier justice, we're not going to stand for it. But, let's just go through some of the people that have been involved with this at the moment in time. And I'm referring to notes of people so I can remember their names. But the latest example is this guy called Hadush Kabatu, whose crimes led to protests outside the Essex Hotel, the Bell Hotel. He's been jailed for a year for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl. And guess what? Lucy Connolly got 31 months for hurty words. What country are we living in if that's not equality under the law? How do you feel about that deep down? I mean, I am supposedly retired, 70 years of age, shouldn't be doing any campaigning really, but I'm so bloody angry. I'm so my daughter's 34, I won't let her walk through London anymore after 9 o'clock at night. Those are the sorts of things. Yeah. I mean, you may know I stood for London Mayor for reform. I got no bloody support from them whatsoever. The only person that did support me, I'm sorry to mention this with Ben, but because he's a good friend of ours, is Rupert Lowe. He was the only person that came on the day I put my voting for myself at Westminster. He's the only one that turned up. No one turned up from Reform headquarters to back them. A major city, our capital, and I was standing for Reform as their London Mayor. And of course, I won't go into the other problems, of course. There's a certain person. I've never hated anyone in my life, but I hate two now. Who's the first one? Who's the second one? Oh. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I don't swear, but I know Ben does. If you were there, because there's a small rally run by a certain person called Tommy Robinson. And as you know, and I'm just reading from the BBC, there was only, 75 people there. And we, right across it echoed, obviously, Tommy, that's lovely, that's one thing I heard it started earlier. But this one, Keir Starmer is a... And I just loved when Ben came out, I watched him and my wife standing there. And I didn't know how he'd take that. But he did a bloody good job, didn't he, how he orchestrated it. But he didn't stop there, did he? Have you seen a certain podcast recently? What is it? What's the word? I'm saying which one. Well, he says I think he said dickhead. Who's that about, Ben?
That was your favourite.
Yes, study calm. Anyway, the point is, this is a very point. We're getting a situation, and I analysed before this event today, 11 sentencing examples across the UK in the last year of sexual and violent crimes against children. The average sentence, bear in mind this is 11 crimes, 11 so-called found guilty. The average sentence was 15 months. Okay? The maximum was 4 years, and 3 were released on licence. I sat there in amazement when I was going through this, preparing to tell you about this. Again, what is happening to our country? What is happening with our judiciary system? And then we go down, we've got Lucy Connolly, and, we've got that situation in Epsom where this judiciary is used by the government. Epsom Council tried to remove those alleged asylum seekers. They're migrants, they're illegal migrants to me, they're nothing. And they're all young men, as you know, they're all laughing out the window at everyone else. The Epsom Council tried to get rid of them, and they won. And then guess what happened? The government took the Supreme Court, and 3 guys sat there, all members of the Fabian Society, and are all sitting there saying, no, that was wrong, you can't do that. So this is what's so wrong with our government. They're willing to use every conceivable aspect of the left-wing judiciary system to get their own way. And then we got, which is very sad to me, is, you remember Peter Lynch? He was called a rioter by The Independent. 2 years, 8 months by a judge at Sheffield Crown Court who heard how he was at the front of a mob that gathered outside the Holiday Inn Express at Manvers in Rotherham on August the 4th, shouting "scum" and "child killers" at police. As you know, he committed suicide. This is the sort of thing we're up against. He was given 2 years and 8 months for basically hurty words again. And then we come on to a certain person called Tommy Robinson. We come on to him. I left Reform. I'm a bit like with Rupert Lowe and with Ben behind me, and a lot of other people, a lot of people in this room. Hands up those who've left Reform. Oh, aren't you lovely? I want to come and kiss and cuddle you. But I was told, under no uncertain circumstances, by Richard Tice and backed up by Nigel Farage, if I continue to back and support Tommy Robinson, I will be expelled from the party. I've just stood for them for London Mayor, and I've just stood down in Dover and came second. I knocked the Tories into 3rd place. I got 24% of the vote in 3.5 weeks. And there's a lot of good people here, a lot of other people who stood and came second. We did very well in that respect, Reform. You think they show some sort of respect for me? And then there was this guy that came on board, paid £200,000 for the privilege, called Zia Youssef. And he didn't even come and speak to me. And I just found it staggering. I kept quiet. I was, not being too upset about it. But then I was asked by Dan Wootton on the Dan Wootton show, what do I think of Tommy Robinson? And at that point, I didn't know much about Tommy. All I knew was what he'd done, the great thing about alerting us to the problem of child rape gangs by ethnic groups across the country, particularly Pakistan. And on that point, I said, I've got to find out more about him. So I visited Tommy in prison. And I spent 2 hours with that man, and we talked about two-tier justice. We talked about equality under the law, all these sorts of things that we're really up problems that he's been talking about for decades, that man. And I was inspired by him. For 2 hours, he spoke for 1 hour and 55 minutes. And I promise you, and I've become friends with him, and we're working behind the scenes at bits and pieces, and it was great, Tommy inviting Ben to talk last week at the Unite the Kingdom. But he got, what was it? I think the thing was, let me work it out. He got 18 months prison for admitting to 10 breaches of High Court injunction. Yes, he did break it. He did break the law. But you don't put a person into solitary, you don't put him into prison. You do things like community service or something like that for these things. Because he didn't hurt anyone. He didn't kill anyone. He didn't rape anyone. He didn't do any of those things. And yet we're seeing, as I said to you just now, 3 people were released under licence, even though they committed rape. But kids. And then there's some other things that are happening at the moment in time, which I think it's not just down to the sexual crimes and the violent crimes. There's other two-tier justice problems at the moment. You heard of Noel Wilcox? Anyone in here? Well, Noel Wilcox has proven in London, his little company, little scaffolding company, he's proven that the ULEZ and LEZ signs, that's the LEZ ones are the commercial ones for low emission zones, and the ULEZ, the ultra low emission zones, are illegal. And there are 2 court cases he won. But the 3rd court case, was thrown out by the judge, and I went and I sat there in the Royal Court of Justice in the Strand in London with him, and I couldn't believe that the barrister on the TfL pleaded. He said, well, you can't go for the claimant, i.e. Noel Wilcox, because we go bankrupt, Transport for London. And worse still, a lot of people would die because because ULEZ wouldn't be operating because of the terrible bad air quality. And the judge listened to that. It was irrelevant. The signs are illegal, and still that pathological liar that sits in London Assembly called Sadiq Khan is taking money from motorists under false pretences.
Yeah.
And there's also, I'm sorry I continue my little barrage of Sadiq Khan is my favourite subject. There's a group called the Tooting Four, you may have heard. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but these are people that basically were campaigning against the ULEZ expansion in London, and they were in Tooting, which happens to be the home area, the home of Sadiq Khan. And to cut a long story short, they've done this 100 times across the ULEZ protests we had, all across London, and never had a problem. Even the police were backing us and supporting us, and we're getting on well with them. But Sadiq Khan decided to say, these people are harassing me and my family. So he took them to court. And Sadiq Khan won. But we all fought for them, and they went to appeal. And they realised that he wouldn't against appeal, win the appeal, so they dropped the case. So they're exonerated. But the point I'm trying to get across is I watched 6 policemen give evidence, all with different stories of what happened on that day. Totally different about how far they're away from Sadiq Khan's house, ranged from something like 15 metres to 150 metres. And the fact they were violent, they weren't. Not at all. I was there. They didn't do that. But this is the two-tier problem we got. And the moment the judiciary is not working for us. And the other one, which I'm nearly finished, is cuts to legal aid in the UK have created a financial two-tier system where access to justice depends on the person's ability to pay. How can that be fair? And then we're in a situation where, those without means are often left with insufficient legal representation, which can disproportionately impact vulnerable people and increase the risk of miscarriages of justice. And there we go. This is the problem. And I'm going to say once and for all, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Ben, but Advance UK will ensure independence, fairness, and that no political influence will be at the heart of our justice system. And everyone will be treated equally under the law. That's the most important part. And I hope when we do get into power, we sit there and talk about the sentencing, that the sentencing must be based on the severity of the crime and how badly the victims have been impacted, not if they've simply been offended. And I will sort of end now. I can go on forever, as you've probably gathered. But above all, catching criminals will be made a priority for the police again, and the freedom of speech will be free of prosecution, totally free of prosecution. So I'll thank you for that's my bit over and done with. I'm now going to introduce you to, you probably noticed, a beautiful woman on this page called Kendall Harper Ray, who is going to talk about her age group and why Advance UK is an attractive proposition. She's always been involved in junior parliaments, etc., bits and pieces. To read her biopic on here, but I'm looking forward to listening to this person because it's great to hear. You've heard from a 70-year-old, you're now going to hear from a 17-year-old. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to have the honour of speaking with you at today's launch. My name is Kendall. I'm a dedicated full-time college student with a passion for politics. Alongside my studies, I work part-time as a dessert chef. I've been driven by a deep desire to pursue a career in politics where I hope to make a meaningful impact. The first step I ever took into this was being a part of a youth-led movement working alongside the local council to make the area a better place for the community. My part included volunteering at events, fundraising and running social media accounts. I also ran for youth parliament against other candidates in Teesside where I was able to conduct a mini campaign at my school. I first became passionate about politics when I was 14 years old, and in secondary school we had mandatory lessons called PSHE, which stands for Personal, Social, Health and Economic, which I assumed would teach us important life skills. Instead, we were taught about gender ideology and topics that I found hard to accept as factual. I signed those lessons wondering how any of this was relevant to our futures. That evening, I started reading news articles out of curiosity about the world beyond the classroom, and over time, I became more politically aware. The current education system stifles independent thought and critical discussion. It needs urgent reform. Students should be encouraged to explore diverse perspectives rather than conform to imposed ideologies. Change to the education system is essential to foster an environment where facts and open dialogue can thrive, preparing individuals for a rational and informed future. I'm still in education, studying politics, business and criminology at college, but throughout my time at secondary school, I faced discrimination for my personal opinions that in my view were based on simple truth. For instance, I stated that a man was a man and a woman was a woman, and no science in the world could ever change that. In a rational world, everyone would agree because it is grounded in biology. Unfortunately, the education system is not a rational world. They want you to adopt to their viewpoints, and because I didn't, I was removed from my mainstream lessons for making what they had deemed offensive comments, when all I did was state a fact. I was told if I didn't call a woman a man, my access to the toilet at school would be denied. I stood my ground and I said no. I was removed from my lessons and had to stay isolated away from everybody. At the time I was angry, but I was not going to let them win. A teacher involved in this situation took offence to my statement and began speaking about me to other students and teachers. She labelled me as transphobic and I should have been permanently excluded from my statement. Fortunately, 2 of my friends were present and told me what they had heard. I wrote a formal complaint and the outcome was that the teacher wasn't going to cover my lessons anymore and I wouldn't be branded that way again. I didn't even get an apology. There were other times where I felt silence and teachers would share their political views during lessons. Because I enjoy a good debate, I would counter their points. But when I tried to express my opinions, I was told I wasn't allowed to speak and often shut down. With authority, teachers boldly claimed their political stance while teaching lessons, only to deny me the right to counter and give a fair balance of view. To me, that is an impediment on my freedom of speech. What struck me as profoundly troubling is that they sought to silence me for declaring the undeniable truth while teaching the very science of biology that affirms it. The purpose of education is to gain knowledge and form independent opinions, yet often felt like the only opinions they wanted us to adopt was their own. I never stayed silent though. Every time something like this happened, I would push the school principal to allow open discussion and let students express their views. While most of the time I was unsuccessful, I still made my voice heard. At the time, no one listened. I tried to voice my opinions on social media, but they were immediately getting taken down. Without Elon Musk, the silent majority would not have a voice. He cares more about our right to speak than our own Prime Minister does. I live in the North East and I've lived here all my life, and the declines of our towns are astonishing. A single stroll through Middlesbrough town centre reveals rubbish littering the streets, disruptive individuals and graffiti defacing every surface, and shops left in a state of despair. I recall my childhood days where the decline wasn't so blight. Even my parents consistently remark on how vastly different it is from their youth, and I think our towns have the potential to be safe were it not for uncaring individuals running our councils. 12.3% of Middlesbrough's population were born outside of the UK, indicating the highest proportion of immigration in Teesside. Groups of men congregate in the town centre, speaking foreign languages and intimidating the locals. It has one of the highest crime rates in the UK, standing at 130 crimes per 1,000 people. This makes it roughly 90% higher than the country's average of 66 per 1,000. I think I speak for most towns and cities across the UK when I say our streets are not safe. The streets that were once welcoming havens for families and communities now feel like battlegrounds. Surging crime rates and influx of individuals with no ties to our country's values have its own British citizens scared to go out at night. Just in the summer, my mum and my sibling were on an evening walk and they walked past a war memorial quite close to our home and they witnessed 4 men drinking and urinating on the war memorial. I visited London on several occasions with my family, and just walking down the streets we see posters making us aware of gangs to be careful of. There are always people congregating in balaclavas, shouting at locals and intimidating the public. The streets are filled with rubbish and it doesn't even look like Britain. Every time my family have visited, and I'm sure most people are the same, we make sure our phones are secure in our pockets, we make sure we are aware of everything that is happening around us, and we also try to secure our handbags the best we can. As much as I like London, it's tiring and wrong that we must be on alert at all times that something may happen. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is more focused on securing political support than prioritising the safety and well-being of the residents. He fails to embody the values of our capital and he's a disgrace to the nation. He does not represent us. But there was one day in London where my family and I felt safe. We weren't worried about a single thing. This day was on September the 13th. It was astonishing that as much as the media branded it a far-right fascist protest, it was the safest I had ever felt in London. On behalf of the British public, Tommy, thank you for giving us hope. Advance UK is exactly what this country needs. We stand proudly for our nation, for freedom, for democracy and for equality under the law. The British people deserve a party that delivers, one that doesn't just make promises, but keeps them. For too long we've been treated like second-class citizens in our own country, and that ends now. We are the voice of the silent majority, millions of hard-working, law-abiding citizens who feel ignored, dismissed and betrayed by the political establishment. On September 13th, Ben Habib stood with us. He listened, he understood, and most importantly, he stood with the public and not against them. The British public doesn't want more of the same. We're calling for a government that's put its own people first, a government that protects British culture, upholds our traditions and defends the values that made this country strong. Advance UK will stand proudly for Britain's Christian constitution, our heritage and our freedoms. We believe that every citizen should have the right to speak freely and act accordingly to their conscience, so long as it does not incite violence. This is about restoring pride, protecting our way of life and building a better future. Advance UK is here to fight for you because Britain deserves better. We envision a Britain where communities are empowered, borders are secure and opportunities are accessible to all who call this nation home. Advance UK is committed to delivering practical solutions that prioritise economic stability, public safety and national sovereignty. We reject the divisive rhetoric and broken promises of the past. Instead, champion unity, integrity and accountability in governance. By standing shoulder to shoulder with the people, Advance UK pledges to rebuild trust in our institutions and create a future where every Briton can thrive. Join us in this movement to reclaim Britain's greatness and ensure a legacy of strength, pride and generations to come. We will never let this Labour government silence us. We are the media, we are the people. It's up to us. We will not back down. The country is in jeopardy and we need to stand up. Thank you. very man who's going to lead us through this, I want to introduce to the stage next, Mr. Ben Habib. Oh, it's okay. Thank you.
Before I start, can I just say what a brave young lady. Brave young lady. Standing up for her rights. Brave to address us, but braver because she stands up for her rights against the institutions that would trample on her. And it is precisely your kind of people, our kind of people, that are going to have to come together to save this country. So thank you very much for everything you've done and you've said. And I'd like to thank my former speakers who have been very gracious about me. But it's not about me. It genuinely isn't about me. Maybe I had the idea for Advance UK, maybe I got some people together, but it is about you, the people of the United Kingdom. And I'm so proud that against all the odds, you made this happen. You joined up. You decided that things had to change. You took our membership from nothing in June to 35,000 members today. We did it, folks. We did it. And we are going to be a force with which the other political parties are going to have to reckon. They don't want us. They tried to shut us down today. Now, we might think it was the far left that was trying to shut us down. I don't know. But there were a number of impediments, including LNER, who tried to stop me from getting here. But get here we did. Now, when it comes to the membership, every single member, every single British citizen on the electoral roll is very, very welcome to join Advance UK. We are not policing our membership. And I want it said unequivocally now, Tommy Robinson is very welcome in Advance UK. Those that tried to shut us down today were trying to rob us of our human rights. I hope you've heard me say this before, but under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Tommy Robinson has a right of political association. He has a right to participate in the political process, and he has a right to gather. We have a right to gather. So when we had these self-appointed moral pearl-clutching policemen of moral correctitude telling us that we were not allowed to gather today because we're far right, they were abusing our human rights. And let's just reflect for a moment on what Tommy Robinson achieved on the 13th of September. I went there thinking, maybe we'll get 75,000 people. I heard lots of noise about how many people were going to be there. I didn't really know. And when I was sitting behind the stage, I still didn't really know because I couldn't see what was going on. But then I had a look at my phone and I saw that the crowd went all the way down Whitehall, all the way down to Westminster Bridge, across Westminster Bridge, backed up all the way to Tate Modern. And they were backed up on the northern side of the embankment. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered in for that rally. It wasn't really a march, it was a rally in my mind, because they came to speak and to celebrate. And as many have said, it was incredibly peaceful. But the political point from that day was that there were millions of people who had expressed themselves very clearly about what they want the government to do. And it was only moments before Keir Starmer couldn't resist coming out and saying there were a bunch of flag-waving, right-wing, far-right people, and we've got to... He again came out with the requirement of reclaiming the flag. They are not listening. They have turned their backs on the people. That lot, you lot, we are the British people. One thing I forgot to say, it's one of the problems of speaking without notes. I forgot to say this on the 13th of September, but it struck me horrifically, and maybe you've heard me say this on podcasts. I'm only allowed on podcasts now because various news channels have taken against Advance UK. But on various podcasts, I've said recently that I was horrified to go to Parliament a couple of weeks ago and see that Parliament has moved from the barricades that it used to have outside itself. But by the way, in the 1980s, we had no barricades in front of Parliament. You could walk right up to the House of Lords. The Commons is behind a slight wall, but you could walk right up to the House of Lords without impediment. And over the decades, we've seen greater impediments separating the people from those that govern us. But I was absolutely horrified when I was going to the House of Lords the other day for a book launch to be met with a 9-foot-tall metal fence that they've now erected. You can't get anywhere near those who govern us. And the reason they need that fence is because they've turned their backs on us. They are doing things they know are to our detriment. That's why they're policing free speech. That's why we have a 2-tier criminal justice system. That's why democracy isn't working in this country anymore. And that's why they need a fence. If an Advance UK government is formed, and if we are successful... When? I've got to be more upbeat. When an Advance UK government is formed. And by the way, that's on the cards. I will come back to that because I want to talk about the political landscape. But when an Advance UK government is formed, the single test about whether or not we've succeeded is whether we feel comfortable in taking that 9-foot-tall metal fence down. If we take that fence down, Advance would have succeeded. I want to talk, if I may, a little bit about the party and how it came to be. I knew for some months, many months, nearly a year actually, that we need a new political force in the United Kingdom. And I was shy of doing it because a certain party was doing quite well in the polls. And I didn't want to, first of all, I thought it'd be an incredibly difficult job, but I didn't want to shake the foundations of hope that were forming in the United Kingdom. And I think, it's funny, sorry, I'm going to digress for a second. One of the reasons I think Tommy Robinson has become quite a key part of the new movement that's forming in the United Kingdom is because, and Elon Musk is involved, is because obviously his stand for free speech, but it goes back, my involvement anyway, goes back to a little tweet I did in late 2024, in which I set out why it was, in my mind, that Tommy Robinson was a political prisoner and that he wasn't rightfully incarcerated as a result of the breach of his injunction on showing that film. And by the way, he was a political prisoner. It was an absolutely politicized decision to throw the book at him. An Attorney General, Lord Hermer, who stood for Gerry Adams, stood for reparations against the British government in favour of the Caribbean people, stood for bringing illegal migrants from the Chagos Islands to the UK, and actually stood for giving Chagos over to Mauritius. This man is an awful, awful man. he decided to throw the book at Tommy Robinson and incarcerate him on what was a civil offence, not even a criminal offence. And I think Liam will correct me, but I think 150 million people have seen the film, haven't they? At least. And so I did this little tweet, which Elon Musk picked up on, and he followed me and he retweeted it. And then I was in GB News on the 5th of January, and Errol Musk came on, and Nana Akua, who was the presenter, said to me, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get Elon Musk on? And I thought, well, he follows me on X, so I can actually just DM him and ask him if he's prepared to come on. And, I mean, it was a long shot, but nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? That's why we're here. And so I texted Elon, and I said, or DM'd him, or whatever the correct expression is, I'm on GB News for the next 3 hours. Would you be available to come down the line? And he immediately texted back, to my horror, and he said, I'd love to come on, but actually I'm out at the flicks with my family, but can we speak tonight? Can we have a chat? And so I had the privilege of talking to Elon Musk that night. And he said to me, and amongst lots of other things he said, and by the way, he cares deeply about the United Kingdom, he cares deeply about Western civilization, and he cares deeply about freedom of speech, which obviously goes to the heart of so many things. But he said to me that night, you should start a new political party. And I thought, oh, God. And I said to him, no, you don't really understand how the UK works. It's so difficult, and, a certain party has now taken control of that space. There's no room for it. And he said, well, okay, then, if it's that difficult, fine. And then a couple of months passed, and the Rupert Lowe incident took place. And for me, that was horrific, because, I mean, lots of ills can be perpetrated in the cut and thrust of politics as you elbow people out of the way to have your own way, which, by the way, we're not going to do as a party. We're going to be serious and principled. But to make accusations which would have landed Rupert in prison had they somehow gone through the criminal justice system, which is perfectly possible nowadays, was absolutely terrible. So I thought at that point the waters were opening for a new political party. And this is how things start. It started with a tweet about Tommy Robinson, Elon Musk, Rupert Lowe then happening. And I thought, right, I've got to do something. I've got to start this party. And there's a gentleman sitting on my left, Richard Shaw, who had incorporated an entity called the Integrity Party. I don't know if you remember, that was the name before. And he'd been texting me for months saying, take my party over, it's got a bank account, take it over, take it over. And I kept saying, no, go away, go away. And eventually, in April, I said, I texted Richard and I said, what was the name of that party? I think maybe I should take it over. And it came with a bank account, which, believe it or not, is difficult to get. And so it was a valuable entity at the day that I took control of it. And I've gone about building this party in a very structured way. And forgive me for doing that, but we are going to be very structured and, as I say, very serious about the way we take our next steps. The first thing I did was to write a constitution, which I think works democratically, and I'm going to open this up to questions afterwards, so please ask whatever you like about the constitution of the party, but I think it works very well from a democratic perspective. You collectively can remove me as leader at any time, whenever you like, simply by a majority vote. There can be no better accountability than that, though I'd rather you didn't do it immediately. If you give me an opportunity to deliver. So we had a constitution, and then I thought, well, so far it's all been in my own mind that the party needs a political force, that the country needs a political force, and that I should set up a new party. So I'm going to set this hurdle of 30,000, which I know to be a figure with which you can fight a general election. We can fight a general election now if we have to. And I thought, if we don't get to 30,000, well, hey-ho, I had a shot at it. But if we do get to 30,000, then I've got the army, and for all the pearl-clutching lot who are watching, I'm talking in metaphorical terms, an army with which we can challenge the political class. And we have that army. And therefore, we're on to the next stage. And it was only moments into recognizing that we would get to 30,000 members that we decided to come to Newcastle and have our launch. But also, we are already now getting on with the very serious business of drafting policy that will deliver the mission statement of nation state, freedom, democracy, and equality under the law. A mission statement that is formed in order to deliver a proud, independent, prosperous, united kingdom. These are the things we are going to be keeping first and foremost in our minds when we go about drafting this policy. And policy, forgive me if this is a bit dull, but it's critical to the future of this country. Policy cannot be made in silos. One of the biggest mistakes politicians have made, governments have made, I mean, they've made millions of mistakes, but one of the mistakes they've made is they tend to treat each policy issue as if it's a separate issue from all other issues. But if you want to control, for example, mass immigration, there are constitutional changes we need to make to the United Kingdom. There are economic changes we need to make to the United Kingdom. There are cultural changes we need to make to the United Kingdom. And they all knock on into each other. And so we need to do some very, very serious thinking as a party about how it is that we create the policies that integrate so that we have a coherent, holistic approach to delivering the country away from the precipice on which it now finds itself, back to a place of safety where we can all be secure and we can all be prosperous. And coming up, when I decided, when we secured this facility, and thank you very much for the brave proprietors of this facility for hosting us. It may not have all the razzmatazz of the Birmingham NEC, and we don't have flares, and we don't have loud music. But I tell you what we do have. We have you lot. But when we secured this wonderful facility, I tweeted, I keep saying tweeted, I posted on X a little video in which I said I come up to Newcastle with peace and love in my heart. And ultimately, politics is about delivering peace and love in all our hearts. And that is what we must firmly keep in mind. The road is difficult. The impediments people put in our way are challenging. Those that challenge us in ways that they shouldn't and abuse us make us angry. They make us want to kick back. But we have to hold our position, and we need to remember that we've got to be civil and polite and peaceable at all times as we go on this journey. Our fortitude comes from holding true to our principles, not by kicking back. So we have, as I say, we've already started the very serious business of putting a policy portfolio together. It's in its very early days. But the aim of the party is that by the time we get to the general election, the British people will be utterly clear on what they will get if they vote for Advance UK. We're not going to play any political games of saying this, hoping that you understand that actually even though we say X, we're going to do Y, and trust us, even though we're talking rubbish, we'll be much better when we're in office. We are going to make ourselves naked to the British people so they can see precisely all our bodily parts, and whether or not, this is metaphorical as well, and whether or not they wish to vote for us. We're going to do something actually that no political party has ever done before. Be honest. Well, that... Well, actually, that's precisely what we're going to be. And the way you will see our honesty is that appended to our manifesto, by the time we get to the general election, won't just be all our policy declarations, but will be draft legislation, bills of parliament constructed by the finest lawyers in the country, so that when we get the British people's mandate, we have a mandate not to just deliver some airy-fairy policies. We have a mandate to deliver that agenda, the acts of parliament which will be drafted and attached to our manifesto. We will go into parliament and we'll say, that's it. Yeah. We have a democratic mandate for that. And the House of Lords won't be able to reject it. They have no ability to reject a manifesto pledge. They won't even be able to tinker with this one because we'll have the damn legislation ready to go. The other thing that's obviously critical in government, and you would have seen how awfully we've performed as a country in this respect, is that we have brave, capable, good, principled people in Parliament. We absolutely need that. So I think the policy work, as challenging as it is actually relatively straightforward. The bigger job we have is to find the people who are going to stand shoulder to shoulder with each other, protect each other, stand for principle, go into Parliament, and challenge all the forces that will be ranged against us. And let me say that even if we win the general election, when we win the general election, that was a quick correction, when we win the general election, we will have opposition once we're in government. The civil service will be against us. The Lords will be against us. I'll tell you one institution that's going to hate us. It's the European Union's going to hate us turning up. And the Supreme Court. The EU ain't gonna like us. You know why? Because one of the things we need to do as a country to liberate us is to actually properly leave the damn EU. So we're going to need great people to carry our policy portfolio, to carry our legislation, and then implement it. We're going to need people who understand business, understand institutions, understand defense, understand health, understand how we reverse the long march of the Marxist left through the educational establishments that are now indoctrinating our children. We have to push this all back. So what I ask of you, you've done a lot, by the way, already, just by joining Advance. You've done a hell of a lot, for which I'm very, very grateful. And coming here, I think you've missed the Ladies World Cup rugby final to be here this afternoon. But what I ask you is, if you want to stand up, put your head above the parapet, come into Parliament and help us deliver the agenda that needs to be delivered to save this country, please make yourselves known to the party. We need good people, and I encourage everyone to apply if you are so minded. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. That's only halfway with me, I'm afraid. You thought that was the end of it with me, didn't you? It's only halfway because I am very, very keen to hear what's on your minds, and by all means make comments. But if you've got questions, I want to have a go at answering your questions. And don't be shy in asking demanding, difficult questions, things that are troubling you about Advance or about me or about the team. I want to hear them, and I want to do my best to answer them. So if anyone's got a question, we had organised a room in which a mic could have been passed around more easily, but the Crown Plaza didn't have the courage to see it through. So can we, okay, Liam, you go first.
Firstly, well done for doing this. This is outstanding and inspiring.
Thank you.
Bear with me with this question. The working class. I feel like we've been neglected for many, many years. I feel like the Tories neglected us.
Yeah.
I feel like Labour hate us. I think we're riddled with political snobbery. Yes. You're a very educated man and handsome. Within Parliament, there's a contamination of snobbery in there. It's unescapable. It pollutes the corridors. Why have you dropped that contamination? Why do you stand with people like me?
So, you know, Liam, I don't know. I don't know why I do, but I love you guys. And, yeah, no, but I do. And when I think, forgive me, this is perhaps going to sound a bit childish, but when I think of the history of the United Kingdom, of course I think of our great generals, our great admirals, our great leaders, our prime ministers, Winston Churchill, Nelson, and so on. But I also think about all those brave soldiers, of one of whom was my grandfather, by the way, who they were the working class, the people the chair that went up across the British fleet as we engaged Admiral Villeneuve's fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar, the chair that went up when Nelson said, "England expects every man to do his duty," the chair that went up from the working class. It was the working class who put their lives in danger during the Battle of Trafalgar, and then Waterloo, and then World War I, then World War II, and all the engagements we've had across the globe, many of the recent ones being ill-conceived. But it's the working class who stepped forward again and again and again for this country. And so when I think of the working class, I do think of the massive contribution. I also think, because I'm in property, of all the great guys I met on construction sites who build buildings and stuff. They're really good people. So, and the other thing, Liam, I have to say this. When I went into politics, I determined rationally that there's no point being in politics in a democratic country if you don't stand for the working and middle classes. They are the backbone of the country. They are the majority of the country. Sure, you need people to do well, and there will always be people who excel to a point where they're in a rarefied atmosphere and very wealthy. But the policies need to be made for the opportunities to be created for the working and middle class in this country. So I stand shoulder to shoulder with the working and middle classes of the United Kingdom. Yes. Danuta.
I'm one of your biggest fans, but today I have to say that young lady there, I didn't catch her name. I'm a retired teacher, and if I was still in teaching, she would be my star pupil. Position in this party, and I'm more than willing to help you. You are amazing.
Hear, hear. Okay, I've got a 15-minute warning. I thought we had masses of time. Anyway, gentleman with the blue cap.
This is quite a tough question, but since 1967, over 10 million babies have been sadly lost their lives through abortion. I'm unapologetically pro-life. I know there's many people in this room that agree with me, and there's probably many that disagree with me. When we look at the Great Replacement, mass immigration is a massive thing, especially illegal immigration. But what are we going to do to promote young women to have children, and also to do away with this terrible assisted suicide where vulnerable people are being pressured into taking their own lives?
So I'm very glad you asked that question, because there is a certain lady, Aileen Quinton, in the crowd, who is a member of the college, who said to me, Ben, one of your you should have a fifth mission statement, a fifth leg to your mission statement, which is family. And it's, of course, something I recognize. It isn't in the mission statement, but family is utterly critical. It's utterly critical for a number of reasons. Family is the smallest component part of a community. Community is a component part of society, and society is basically the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And so family is the building block on which we need lots of building blocks of families. That wasn't very articulate, forgive me. But the way you do that is not by removing the cap on two-child benefit. You don't encourage those who are unable to afford to look after their children by allowing them to have children. You don't run a country on the principles which encourage both parents to work. You don't run a country on the principles which put economic progression ahead of the family. And I'll just illustrate this point. When I was a young man, if you got married, you got a marriage allowance. And what I think we've got to do is reward people so that when they get married, they again get that tax allowance. When they have babies, they get a tax break for every baby that they have. So it's the working class who get the tax breaks for procreating. And that if one parent should decide to stay at home, and that should be encouraged, they get a further tax break. This has... This has obviously the clear benefit of encouraging families to be families and to procreate. I call that basic policy bonking for Britain. And I imagine, not all policies have to be boring. So we can have a bonk for Britain. But the other really important thing here about the family, and it's something sinister that's taken place over the last few decades, is that in the pursuit of economic progression for themselves, spouses, parents, have basically had to both work, and they've handed their children over to the state. And I was horrified when, what was the name of the last Chancellor of the Exchequer with the Conservative Party? His name's gone. Jeremy Hunt. He came out with his name genuinely had gone. That wasn't a joke. He came out in his last budget, one of his policies was that they would increase state aid for mothers with children as young as 9 months. That is horrific. You're stripping a child away from its parent so the parent can go to work. But if you have a policy for Bonk for Britain where one spouse can stay at home, then the children are brought up by their parents. You don't, for example, the need for the Online Safety Act, which is now being used to shut down freedom of speech, the need for it is lessened if you have a parent at home, because you've got a parent policing their children's behavior. Everything comes right. And this is, by the way, what I mean about economic policy constitutional policy, cultural policy, all having to work together. In the Bonk for Britain policy, we've touched on a number of different aspects in order to bring back families, bring back our communities, and bring back society. So I completely support the direction of travel in which you wish to go. I think we will have the policies for it. And before I finish, I just want to say, I think it is abominable that this Parliament has passed abortion effectively up to 9 months of pregnancy. It's absolutely abominable. And while I'm on that subject, it's equally abominable that they are about to pass a law which would allow the vulnerable and elderly to be put down. The Assisted Dying Act, when it becomes an act, it's actually an extraordinary thing. So I'll just say this and I'll go to the next question. It's an extraordinary thing that we abolish capital punishment where there was a judicial process where every opportunity was given to the criminal to find a way to justify not being put down. We've gone from abolishing capital punishment to a system where people can be put down without any judicial process. How hijacked have we become as a country? Right, next question. Gentleman there with the paper.
Yeah, hi there. I think we've got an amazing atmosphere here today, so my question relates to that. And it's what are we going to do with this atmosphere? Because you can lose this very, very quickly. And you mentioned in the end of your speech about how you're looking for people to put themselves forward for Parliament or maybe for council positions. But for most people here, we can't do that. So we wonder, how can we help? And is there a structure in the party where we can actually work either within the party and also independently? There's a lot of people here from the independent media that are doing a great job. But I think the party needs to have something internally where others of us can come in and
So
work.
the next big step for the party, we've now applied to the Electoral Commission for registration. I'll let you into a secret, though I haven't said this to anyone before. It's not much of a secret, but there's another entity. The day I declared we'd made 30,000 members, the next day another entity went to the Electoral Commission and applied as Advance UK. The next day, there's spoiler tactics. And I suspect it's not from the far left, that spoiler tactic. Anyway, once we get the electoral registration, the Electoral Commission registration, so we're a full political party, everything changes. Because at that point, we will be, and we're going to start this now, by the way, we're going to be campaigning locally. We've got to start that, folks. We've got to have volunteers who are prepared almost to treat as if the period between now and 2029 is a general election period. We have to get to the grassroots of the United Kingdom instantly, because the mainstream media is going to try and shut us down. We achieved our 30,000 members, by the way, over the heads of every mainstream media channel. We did it through podcasts, we did it through support of you lot, we did it through the support of Liam. Liam, actually, I think the interview you did. Well, I mean, Liam grilled me for 2 hours, and I came out of the interview thinking, I wonder how that was. You know, was it all right? But there was a lot of positive feedback, wasn't there?
Let me tell you, immense feedback. The DMs were flooded on all platforms, and above all, the woman I respect and admire more than anybody in the world, my hero, the love of my life, my mother, loved you.
So, thank you. I love your mum. So what we need is volunteers to come forward and campaign, and we're going to start campaigning. So and the aim is, if our political foes are watching, the aim is that when the first poll is done, you know, YouGov poll or whatever is done, and Advance UK is included in it, that we hit the road with an impact. And then the political establishment, the political commentariat, they cannot ignore us, because we are there. Sorry, how are we doing? We've got 5 more. Syntech.
Very quickly, sir.
Yeah.
Just one question. What do you plan to do about the benefits system, specifically universal credit? Because obviously we've seen so many people, especially migrants, they're abusing the system. I'm not sure if you're aware there was an Afghan migrant who came into the country and then went back on holiday using his universal credit to the country that he escaped from. So how do you plan to tackle that?
So there are 1.5 million foreigners in the United Kingdom on benefits, costing the country £10 billion a year. Why can't we pass a law? By the way, it doesn't have to go through the House of Lords because this would be a finance issue. It doesn't have to go to the House of Lords. We should be able to pass a law instantly to stop the foreigners in this country getting benefits. No foreigners in the United Kingdom should get benefits. But we've got to break the dependence on benefits of the British people. You will be shocked, or perhaps you won't be, but I was shocked. There are 8 million people in this country surviving to a greater or lesser extent on universal credit. 1.5 million of those 8 million people are working. Every other member of that group is either not even looking for a job or is looking for a job and can't find one. And what are the causes of this? Well, it's an overreaching state, a state which has removed aspiration and replaced it with dependency. It's a state which champions wealth redistribution rather than wealth creation. It's a state which has imported millions, not lowly skilled migrants, but frankly, entirely unskilled migrants, pulling the rug out from underneath the employment market so that we don't get wages going up in this country so that you can't earn a fair wage. And because you've got a dependency culture that has taken root, the government is taxing those who are working, the working and middle classes, to the hilt. We have the highest tax take of any government since World War II. It's wartime levels of taxation. And so this comes back to the holistic approach that we need to take to sort the country's problems out. Migration needs to be brought down dramatically. Illegal migration needs to stop. Foreigners on benefits needs to stop. Taxes on working and middle class people need to be reduced. We need to allow wages to go up. We need to allow people to keep what they earn. We need to create a regulatory environment in which people can have the opportunities that through their own efforts will deliver for themselves and for their families. So after they've bonked, they can actually look after Johnny and Johnny and Jamie come to mind. I don't know why. Right, last question. Gentleman there with the tie and the hand up at the Sorry, is there a lady there? Sorry, forgive me. Yeah.
You need to create 18 to 30-year-olds haven't worked, right? It's all right saying this, that, and the other about universal credit. You need to create jobs for kids. We need to get back to working for ourselves, not relying on overseas, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think one of the tragedies, and we'll all be familiar with this as well, one of the tragedies of the last 30, 40 years of governance has been that we've lost skill sets out of the economy. We've stopped being able to create things in this country. If you practice extreme ideologically based energy policies, and you effectively denude, and then you champion free trade globally. Trump is right. We need tariffs on certain countries. If you champion free global trade and you make it extremely expensive for British business, what you effectively achieve is the deindustrialization of the United Kingdom. And that is what we've done. And we've got to bring jobs back to the UK, and then we've got to train our young in the skills that are required to fulfill those jobs, not to go to Loughborough University and get a degree in media, but actually to do stuff that's useful. And I remember in the early 90s, this is no slight on the Irish, but I remember in the early 90s, in the 1989-91 recession, people used to say, you can't get an English plumber anymore, they're all Irish. It's because we lost the plumbing skill in this country. And the Irish now are not even plumbers. They've moved on. And we keep denuding skill sets. So we've got to have a focus on what the country needs. And that means we're going to have to do more basic functions domestically. functions which are going to be critical, by the way, for the defense of this country as well, like making steel. I know that wasn't your question, but it's an absolutely critical component.
Probably all of these flags have been made in China. How ironic is that?
That is very ironic. Right, one more gentleman with the tie and jacket. Yeah.
All of this was from Newcastle.
It's all from Newcastle, I'm told. It's all from Newcastle. The flags are from Newcastle.
What are we going to do to stop digital ID before they use it against us? Yeah.
Okay, here's a pledge. Here's a pledge from Advance UK. Every single law and policy passed by this government will be reversed by an Advance UK government. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think there is lubrication. Lubrication. Before you bonk for Britain, get some lubrication. Thank you very much.